Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Keklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Ashwin.
How's it going?
Not well,
Not
as
well.
you can
Not as well as it could be. However, let's get into some of the highlights from today's program. This is what you can expect. Now, UN warns of substandard medicines being sold in the Sahel region. 15 foreign media outlets have been banned in Ethiopia. North Korea labels US South Korea drills as an extreme red line. These and more stories coming to you on Africa Good Morning. Now, in the first of our top stories, UN warns of substandard medicines being sold in the Sahel region. Up to half of the medicines available in the Sahel region are either substandard or out of date. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has warned the inferior drugs are withdrawn from the supply chain in Europe and to a lesser extent from China and India. They then often pass through seaports in Guinea, Ghana, Benin and Nigeria before being transported to the Sahel. The UNODC report published on Tuesday highlights Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger and Chad as the hardest hit countries. Even if there are no reliable data on all the quantities trafficked in various forms and routes in the countries of the Sahel, studies indicate a percentage of substandard or falsified medicines on the market ranging from 19 to 50%, it stated. Worse, once the medicines are diverted from the official supply chain, there is little guidance on how it should be used by the patient. Now, these deficiencies contribute to microbial and anti-malarial resistance. Those who maintain this trade, ranging from employees of pharmaceutical companies to street vendors and security guards. Now, although the Sahel region is blighted by Islamic extremist violence, armed groups are less involved in this type of trafficking.
Now, law and disorder, Malawi magistrate blasted for allowing rape accused to be fondled in court.
A magistrate who allowed a rape accused to have his genitals fondled in court in the presence of his alleged victim to prove he cannot get an erection has been blasted for allowing such a gross display to occur in his court. This very unfortunate and highly illegal occurrence happened after a woman volunteered in court during the hearing to masturbate the man accused of rape when he wanted to prove he cannot have an erection. Magistrate Philip Chibwana will have to appear before Malawi's Judicial Service Commission facing a misconduct charge for allowing the incident to happen in his court. The incident came to the attention of the High Court of Malawi after the parent of the 17-year-old victim complained about Chibwana's conduct during the court case. The incident was taken on review following the complaint.
North Korea labels US South Korea drills as an extreme red line.
North Korea has lambasted South Korea and the United States over their joint military exercises, saying the drills have pushed the situation on Korean Peninsula to an extreme red line and have threatened to turn the region into a huge war arsenal and a more critical war zone. The North Korean statement issued on Thursday also threatened the toughest response and said Pyongyang was not interested in dialogue as long as Washington pursued what it called hostile policies. The warning from Pyongyang came days after the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin visited Seoul and pledged to increase Washington's deployment of advanced military assets to the Korean Peninsula, including fighter jets and aircraft carriers, as it strengthens joint training and operational planning with South Korea. The North Korean statement, attributed to an unidentified spokesperson of its foreign ministry, said the expansion of the Allies' drills is threatening to turn the Korean Peninsula into a huge war arsenal and a more critical war zone. The DPRK will take the toughest reaction to any military attempt of the U.S. on the principle of nuke for nuke and an all-out confrontation for an all-out confrontation. We move over to Ethiopia, where 15 foreign media outlets have been banned in the country. Ethiopian authorities suspended 15 foreign media outlets which have been operating in the country's Somali regional state. Somali, one of the 9 regional states, is located in Ethiopia's east. The suspension for allegedly operating without license was ordered at the national level by the Ethiopian Media Authority, and the Somali Region Communications Bureau was urged to take action. Media include BBC Somali and the Universal TV. An official letter by Ethiopia's media regulatory body said it found out an investigation that there were media outlet representatives and journalists who operated in Somali state without license and therefore in breach of the law.
Now Tanzania to probe missing funds from prosecutor's office.
Tanzania has formed a commission to investigate claims that most of the money collected for plea bargain agreements by the public prosecutor are missing, with some allegedly banked outside the country. Most of the money is missing. If you ask questions, you'll be told that they are in an account in China, President Samia Suluhu said on Tuesday at an event launching the investigative commission. In 2019, Ms. Samia's predecessor, John Magufuli, amended the criminal laws to introduce, among other changes, a plea bargaining arrangement where detained suspects and convicts bought their freedom or got lesser sentences. According to the government's audit office, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions had collected at least $21 million by April 2021. Ms. Samia did not, however, give the exact figures of how much was missing and the owners of the said offshore account. During Magufuli's administration, millions of dollars were squeezed from businessmen who were accused of serious economic crimes in plea bargain deals. A high-profile economic crimes case settled under the arrangement involved the owner of Independent Power Tanzania Limited. Among many others, investigative journalist Eric Kabendera in February 2020 paid over $70,000 to be free, according to the courts.
Bringing us to the end of our top stories, Malawi anti-graft chief suspended over leaked audio.
Now, the head of Malawi's anti-corruption bureau, Martha Chizuma, has been suspended over a leaked piece of audio in which she can allegedly be heard discussing official matters with a person not employed by her office. The comments that she allegedly made could prejudice the trial of people charged with corruption. The audio was leaked a year ago, and at the time, President Lazarus Chakwera said that it was recorded and circulated in a bid to force him to sack her. Ms. Chizuma remained in the job with the president's backing and went ahead to indict several high-profile officials, including Vice President Saulos Chilima and a cabinet minister, on various corruption-related charges. They have denied wrongdoing. On Wednesday, her suspension was announced by the Secretary to the Cabinet, Colin Nazamba, but some legal experts have questioned the protocol used. President Chakwera's office has not commented on the suspension. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Speaking of Africa, in the real Africa, Zambia, they recorded more tourist arrivals from within Africa and Europe last year than they did in 2021. And we'll be breaking that down and other stories with Mike Sichula after the break.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is, bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navrae, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
Now, I know Zambia to be incredibly beautiful and a wonderful tourist destination. Of course, we do often disagree on where the Victoria Falls lies, but after all, they are our brothers and sisters, and it's a beautiful place to be. And that's why we're happy to have Mike Sichula coming from the Real Africa to bring us the news. Good morning, Mike. Tell us about the latest tourism numbers.
Thank you very much. Well, this is according to Zambia Airports Corporation Acting Managing Director Maggie Kaunda, who says the country recorded more tourist arrivals from within Africa and Europe last year compared to 2021. She says 1.6 million passengers were attended at the Zambian airports in 2022 compared to 753,000 in 2021. Well, this development has been attributed to the increase in the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions. So as a result of these COVID restrictions being relaxed, a number of tourist arrivals have passed through major Zambian airports, which is something that the corporation says is a plus on its part, considering that the Zambian airports have modern infrastructure like the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport and the other ones that are coming on the Copper Belt, which has also been attributed to increase of tourist arrivals, as well as international airlines like Turkish Airlines that are flying into Zambia. So those are some of the attributes for this achievement.
All right. Now, in a related development, the shared Victoria Falls, remember that, Mike, shared between Zambia and Zimbabwe, is expected to be full by mid-February, provided the flash floods continue.
Yes, something that is also related to tourism, because the Victoria Falls is one of the major tourist attractions in Zambia. So the National Heritage Conservation Commission says the Victoria Falls is expected to be full by mid-February this month, provided the flash floods continue. Zambia is currently receiving flash floods across the country, and the commissioner acting Regional Director, Southern Region, Richard Bewe, says the water levels at the natural wonder in Livingstone have increased, with more than half of the falls covered by water curtain. Mr. Mbewe said the increased levels are as a result of improved landfall activities within Livingstone and other areas where the Victoria Falls gets its water to make that thunder, as you can see from that picture, which is something that is a huge improvement for tourism to come and see the Victoria Falls.
The Victoria Falls, ever so majestic, known as Musiwa Tunya, the smoke that thunders. Now, moving on, President Hakainde Hichilema says it is unfair that most African countries pay more to access capital from developed nations. Tell us about this.
Well, the president was speaking when he received credentials from diplomats accredited to Zambia this week. The president said he will engage some countries in the world to ensure that Zambia has access to fairly priced capital. According to President Hichilema, he says it is unfair that most African countries pay more to access capital that they would want to use in developmental projects within their regions. He says these countries must work together to ensure that this is changed. President Hichilema has maintained his stance that there can never be economic development when there is instability in the region and in the world. So this is something that Mr. Hichilema hopes that international countries that are lending Africa funds are going to listen to this message and see to it that it becomes a fair deal in terms of cooperation between African countries and the European and the Western countries of the world.
Yes, indeed. Now, finally, in sports, Zambia has been drawn against arch rivals, South Africa, Nigeria, and Morocco at the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations.
Well, reacting to the draw, Zambia Under-17 men's national team coach Ian Bakara says his team has nothing to fear after being drawn against South Africa, Nigeria, and Morocco at the Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations to be held in Algeria. Baraka says the COSAFA champions will renew their rival against South Africa months after completing a double over their neighbors at the regional 5 games in Lilongwe that were staged for the zonal qualifiers for Africa. So that's Coach Ian Bakara in the pictures there, who said this team is ready to conquer Africa, and he does not care whether the team will come up against South Africa, Nigeria, as well as Algeria, because what the team has done is adequate preparation to ensure that the team comes out victors from the tournament and qualify to the World Cup, because this tournament is being used to automatically book global to the World Cup for that will be staged in Peru. So all stakes are high, and it is expected that the junior Copa team are going to do wonders at the Africa Cup of Nations in Algeria.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sichila, for bringing us the latest news on the ground.
Thank you so much. Do have a lovely weekend. Africa, good morning.
Africa, good morning indeed. Let's have a look at the weather predictions.
Getting into our economic news, Bank of Tanzania ordered to refloat tender award for banknotes reprint.
Yes, now the Public Procurement Appeals Authority has ordered the Bank of Tanzania to restart a multi-billion shilling tender for the reprinting and supply of banknotes after noting flaws during the vetting of bidders. The quasi-judicial body has discovered that all 4 international firms that were shortlisted after the pre-qualification process failed to comply with criteria set in the tender documents. The decision follows an appeal by the leading banknotes printing firm, MS De La Rue International Limited, that was challenging its disqualification from the lucrative deal floated by the central bank in July last year. The appeal arises from a pre-selection of suppliers who tender for reprinting banknotes at the BOT subhead office in Dar es Salaam. The bank, via the Tanzania National E-Procurement System, invited applicants to apply for the tender for reprinting banknotes at the BOT subhead office in Dar es Salaam. 8 applications were received by July 8, 2022 deadline. Following an evaluation, 4 applicants who were found to have complied with the requirements of the pre-qualification documents were shortlisted.
Moving over to Kenya, increase in charging points encourages electric vehicle use.
That's right. In Nairobi, motorcyclists are going electric as a new increase in charging points pop up throughout the capital. More charging stations and lower running costs are making it easier to switch away from polluting petrol vehicles. The vehicles are gaining traction as electric mobility companies set up ways to charge batteries. Electric charging cuts carbon emissions, crucial in the battle against climate change. Ampersand, in an e-mobility startup which began operating in Kenya in May 2022, has 7 battery swapping stations in the capital and around 60 customers. Ian Bote, Ampersand's expansion lead, says this form of transport is a money saver. But Bote says the government must make it easier to do business. We need more policy that favors the industry. That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Economic indicators up next.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cricket news. The one-day series South Africa versus England came to an end. South Africa winning the series 2-1, but importantly they lost the 3rd game, and that put pressure on them to qualify for the 2023 50-over World Cup that's going to be played later this year in India. South Africa wanted to win the series 3-0. They also need to win 2 games against the Netherlands that will play in South Africa on the 31st of March and the 2nd of April. With the loss in the third ODI that England won by 59 runs, that was in Kimberley, it is now South Africa. They definitely need to win the 2 games against the Netherlands. Then they also probably need a favour from New Zealand. New Zealand play against Sri Lanka in the ODI series in New Zealand, and if New Zealand can win that series 3-0, it will definitely benefit South Africa to qualify directly for the World Cup in India. That World Cup starts on the 14th of October. The final will be played on the 26th of October. If South Africa don't qualify, there will be qualifying rounds that will be applicable with teams like Zimbabwe and West Indies also in that knockout tournament. In the game that England won, the third ODI, it was England that batted first. They recovered from 15 for the loss of 3 wickets. They made 346 for the loss of 7 wickets. Best score there was Jos Buttler, 131 runs, and also South African-born David Malan scoring 118. South Africa bowled out for 287, and it is England winning by 59 runs. Heinrich Klaasen was the best contributor with the bat, 80 runs for South Africa, and it was Jofra Archer back to best form again after injury layoff. He took 6 wickets for 40 runs. And continuing with soccer news, it is the Carabao Cup final that is determined. It will be Manchester United that play against Newcastle. That will be on the 26th of February. And it is Manchester United through to the final. They, on aggregate, after 2 games, beat Nottingham Forest by easily by 5-0. It's the first domestic final for Manchester United since 2018. And it is Erik ten Hag, the coach of Manchester United, that's very adamant that they take this final very seriously. He said it's no achievement to be in the final. That is Erik ten Hag saying that. He said they must win a trophy. So that final again, that will be on the 26th of February. That is Manchester United playing against Newcastle. Continuing international sports news with rugby news, and it is almost time for the Six Nations 2023 to start, and a long-awaited series. Lots of excitement building up for that. News from that on the 4th of February is England that will play against Scotland, and the news from the England camp is they will probably have a new centre in Joe Marchant, and news coming through from the camp is that Manu Tuolagi, that's been playing most of the time for England in that position, will probably not be selected by the new coach Steve Borthwick. He took over from Eddie Jones, his first season in a Six Nations Championship. It was Tuolagi that made his debut in 2011, and he's 31 years old. Also, the other game on the 4th of February will be Wales and Ireland, and it is Welsh coach Warren Gatland also seen to making new changes. He's also taking over again from this year, and he brought in Lee Halfpenny. Lee Halfpenny haven't played for Wales for the past 19 months, and it's his first start in 19 months. He's 34 years old, but very experienced, and Warren Gatland knows him well. Also, Alan Wynne-Jones, the very experienced lock that was the captain of the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa a few years ago. He will also be in the starting 15 probably. Closing off today's international sports news with golf news, and it is related to the world rankings. It is the British Open champion, that is Cameron Smith from Australia. He said the world rankings at the moment is obsolete. He made that big statement because the players that play in the Live Golf initiative, like Cameron Smith, they don't earn any world ranking points. Some of the players also playing in Live Golf that was near the number 1 position in the world do have very bad rankings at the moment. It's Dustin Johnson now at 46 in the world, and Bryson DeChambeau is all of 96 in the world. The Breakaway League, the Live Golf initiative, created division in the sport, and it is a tournament that is not funded or sponsored by a corporate company. It is funded by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, and they also play only 54 holes, and there is only 48 players allowed in the tournament on invitation. That is the Sports News International.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Let's head into the highlights. UN warns of substandard medicines being sold in Sahel region. Law and disorder, Malawi magistrate blasted for allowing rape accused to be fondled in court. North Korea labels US-South Korea drills as an extreme red line. And Bank of Tanzania ordered to refloat tender award for banknotes reprint. Those have been our stories. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning, not just today, but throughout the week and, of course, throughout the year as we turn one next week, Wednesday, on the 8th of February. From Diana Master and Ashwin Berry, Swera Jakanaka.